I don't know how they can go on travel if we can't pay for their rooms. And I guess the business office is suggesting that they pay with their own money and then they'll get reimbursed, which I think is a little unfair. And I don't know how we can alleviate the problem, but I'll hand that off to you, and you might want to check with Maria and see if we can do it any other way.
Board Member Serrano, I already have spoken with Ms. Fidalgo, and she said this is not her rule. This is what the Public Education Department is telling us, that in order for travel to occur, we need to use a purchase order, or travelers need to get reimbursed. And I agree with you 100%. A level 1 teacher making $32,000 a year and traveling out of state for a week, that's a huge burden.
There's no credit cards in the district?
Pardon?
We don't have a credit card in the district?
No, we do not, with the state takeover. Board Member Herrera spoke with me this morning. He spoke with Mr. Aguilar at Public Ed Department on something I'm following up with. Board Member Herrera, would you share?
It said that we have 2 travel agencies on state contract, which make the reservations and traveling arrangements, and in turn that travel agent would take the PO and cover the travel expenses.
So then there would be additional charges because of using a travel agency?
No, just because they're a travel agent, Pablo, they get a better price.
And I have already,
We're in this as part of your leadership, Mr. Duhan.
None at all.
Well, I don't know. I don't think it's been brought to the attention of these 2 former groups that's what we can do. I suggest that maybe tomorrow or sometime get together with them and let them know that option is available. And I mean, we could sit here and fight all day and want money to come off the tree, and we can send them. But if that's the best available avenue, let's talk to these people and make sure that they have it. And
so I began today tracking down that information.
Okay.
Once I'm going down that path.
okay.
So, Mr. Serrano, I spoke to Gino briefly earlier, and he's going to make a phone call to the PD, and we're going to have David Craig present at a meeting how we can avoid this type of situations and how we can make it easier. So, Gino is going to contact you.
Okay, good. You know, they were just a little worried that this, like you said, on $32,000 a year, they're a little worried that they can't pay upfront.
Yeah, and last year, I understand last year, we spent $900 and it took 6 months to do that, so I understand the fears.
Okay, well, thank you, Ms. Johnson, for taking the initiative and working with these people. I appreciate it.
And apparently it's quite unusual anymore for hotels to take purchase orders.
If I'm, for the record, my name is Larry Del Vero, in charge of federal programs. For President, members of the board, and acting superintendent, Ms. Johnson. It's not the lack of funding that we have. We have the funding for it. It's just that we cannot, some of these hotels do not accept POs. We do not have a credit card. We do have worked with a travel agency before, but they're hesitant to take the role or take that booking of rooms, because then they are liable for any damages to the room. So if there is an agency that's willing to do that, we'd be more than welcome to get there, because we're running out of time. I mean, we have a training now in June, and I just don't know what direction to take it. It's some of the teachers have committed that they're willing to do and get reimbursed, but not all. And like Ms. Johnson, Superintendent Johnson stated, it's difficult for some of these staff members to do that. And it's not for, the funding is there. Okay? It's not that we don't, but we just don't know what direction to take, and that's what we are.
Well, I think Mrs. Johnson's gonna look into that and see if we can, this time is short and we need to get this done.
Exactly, because if I might say that by the time we get the PO back from Ed, it takes several days, and then we've got to, if we're going to obligate the funds, and then we need to do that, we do have a PO in place, and they'll take the training after the fiscal year begins, and we have have until September 30th to pay off on those schools. But it's just a process that we need, and we need that direction as to where we want to go. It's not for lack of money, but we want to support these students.
And we're aware of this problem, we're just trying to expedite it.
Yes,
It shouldn't be a problem like this. It's very difficult for everybody, and it's affecting a lot of people. So the PD is going to be made aware that this, we need another solution basically for this.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Do you have any questions on the board, Mr. Serrano?
That was the same question I had for all of these, that's why I put them on. I wanna make sure that you're available to take this training. Training's invaluable. And if we can have these things taken care of for you, that's what we wanna do, is send you to training so you can come back and train.
Yes, sir. And like I say, I mean, we want to help our teachers become highly effective and in turn help these students succeed. That's our purpose.
Well, I know before they hardly went to training, and I think it's invaluable, like I said, that you get this training, and I think we're all for it, but we just need to fix this small problem.
Yes, sir. And I thank you.
Thank you. We heard the recommendation of Madam Superintendent. Do I have a motion to approve consent items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5?
I recommend approval.
Second.
Motion. Patrick makes a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Other action items, discussion of possible approval of adding the Vargas Law Firm LLC to the district's legal service providers for insurance coverage matters only, pending PAD approval. Do I have a motion to retain the Vargas Law Firm?
I'll make the motion.
Motion,
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Information, April accounts payable, and board information entitled to carry over. Next discussion is agenda. Letter A, athletics, Mr. Eric Rivera.
Board President Archuleta, board members, Superintendent Johnson. This is our board presentation for tonight. We're mainly covering the budget questions that were asked at the last meeting. Our agenda for tonight, Andrew, if we can get to the next slide, please. We're going to talk about athletic funding sources, how to streamline the budget, revenue and cash balance by fiscal year. I'm going to have Ms. Myrna Herrera Myrna Garcia. Talk to us about the cash balance, the terminology involved with that, revenue versus expenditure by year, athletic expenditures, the athletics fund, 22,000, operational fund, 11,000, our coaches' salaries, athletic student activity funds, and proposed budgets for athletics. Okay, first off, our athletic funding sources. Our athletics fund, 22,000, that's our gate receipts fund. This is the one that we have revenue come in for every game that we host, that we charge admission to. This is where the gate receipts go into, 22,000. Typically, what should be paid out of athletics, which you will see later on, should be our game day expenses, which would be the workers, which would be security, which would be officials. We would also pay equipment out of this. What's happened in the past, as you'll see throughout the presentation, is student travel, which is a huge part of our budget, has been coming out of this fund. That's how come we have not been able to balance this budget. It should be coming out of operational, 11,000. Again, in working with Ms. Maria Hidalgo, Ms. Myrna Garcia, we researched what other schools have been doing, and of course, that's what they're doing. They're taking it out of operational. Our student travel for a year averages about $120,000. That's transportation, that's meals, and that's hotels. For example, when we go to a game in Albuquerque, The trip there in the bus costs us roughly $300, $7.50 per meal. So if we're taking a team of 40, that's $300 right there on top of that. So one trip, that would be $600 total. We'll also talk about the non-instructional activity funds. This would be our fundraising monies. This would be, each sport has their own activity fund. They've been asked to fundraise about $5,000 a year, and usually with their money, they pay for some equipment. They might pay for hoodies, they might pay for team camps. The rings came out of activity funds. The Booster Club is also an activity fund, but we'll touch on that a little bit later on.
I have a question for you, Mr. Mayor. That's feeding the kids. I think we're the only district that's left to feed the kids. I know Los Alamos, who's got a horrendous budget, Milwaukee, they don't feed their kids anymore. We're the only school district that does. Is there anything coming up that you're not going to do that, or are you gonna continue doing it?
Board member Sedano, I think I've come to the board 2 or 3 times asking to decrease the bill money to $4 or to take away the bill money totally, and it been defeated the 2 or 3 times that I presented that. In my estimation, I know we still need to calculate it, it would be from $40,000 to $50,000 that we would save from bill money, because again,
How much would the savings be?
$40,000 to $50,000, because again, it's not just Española Valley High School that's involved in the athletic funding, it's a part of the middle school.
Well, one of the things that, like I said, I know we're the only district that still does it, and I know some people, you know, are gonna balk at this, but
Operating expenses that we won't.
I agree with, giving them lunch. A lot of these southern statistics that just give us the high rate of poverty. They don't have money for basic needs, they're gonna have money for buy their child lunch on an activity, and they'll drop out of the sport.
In my personal opinion, I think it levels out the playing field, because as a kid that has a dollar, or a kid that's 20, I just think, former coach, there's kids that don't eat.
I'm in favor of, but I don't think we're gonna break the budget with $7.50.
well, when it comes down to $40,000 and we're in budget talks right now, I mean, we've asked to be cut. I mean, I've been to the budget meetings and there's cuts everywhere, and in my opinion, I think it should be done. And that's only my opinion, but like I said, every surrounding school, including Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Los Alamos, I've talked to athletic directors and they do not feed their kids. And even Coronado up north, they don't feed their kids. We're the only ones that still do. And I think if it gets down to cost cutting and our budget's not in order, that might have to be cut.
Board member Sedano, I do know that Santa Fe Public does still feed them. The other schools, again, I agree with you, because I spoke at length with Santa Fe Public when we finally implemented the P-card system, which we used for our first 9 weeks here. That was the credit card system that we were using in place of the purchase orders. But when PED took over again, they did away with all the school credit cards. But we had implemented the P-card system here, again, mimicking what we had, information we had obtained from Santa Fe Public. So I do know that they still do provide meals at Santa Fe Public.
President Archuleta, members of the board, a few years back when I was with Santa Fe Public Schools and we were experiencing severe budget woes, one solution we had to this very issue was we had our food services provide sack lunches to take on the bus. And I remember, I don't know if they're still doing that, but we did that for a good couple of years. And I remember our surveying our athletes and getting feedback on the meals. It was substantially more affordable than, what we were doing. So that's just a thought to share.
Superintendent Johnston, Superintendent Bobby Gutierrez proposed this, but also to the board, and this was also defeated, just to give you a little historical perspective.
So how many meals do you feed them per day? Do you feed them, the breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or
Board member Serrano, again, it depends on, for example, if they're playing in the state tournament, like our girls basketball team did this year, we look for a hotel with complimentary breakfast, and then we feed them lunch and dinner. And state tournament, our policy has been for the meals to be $10 per meal.
I think another way of saving is we can also limit how many kids travel, how many managers travel, save a little bit of money that way also.
We could limit travel, we could limit hotel stay, there's a lot of ways we can do that. In meeting, I had a district meeting this morning, for Capital with District 258, looking down into the future. We're looking at the NMA changing, decreasing the number of games by 10% in each sport. For example, football will go from 10 to 9 games, basketball will go to 26 to 24. Again, we'll be in a new district, not this coming season, but the year after. They kind of gave me a glimpse of what that's going to look like. But again, it's for budgetary reasons in terms of transportation and missed class time. So that's what we're looking at in a couple of years.
Well, I know coaches, Mr. Villa, that don't want to, but like we have Powaka, we finally played Powaka. It's a great gate game, because I understand the gym was full. I would like to see that we play them home and one home, one away. And I know coaches balk at that because of the problem that when it comes to seeding, and if you play a AAA team, and I know we're in a tough district because we're probably the furthest north biggest school, which is I think Taos is 4A and St. Mike's is 4A, Powaka's 4A, and the coaches balk. But maybe we might have to go to that situation where we might want to have to play close and alleviate travel.
Board member Sano, and again, speaking with representative from the NMA alignment committee, our district in a few years will consist of Powaka, it'll consist of Los Alamos. They're going to drop down to five classes. For the state, we'll be in class 4A. It's looking like it'll be from 550 students to 1,300 students will be the makeup of class 4A. I think Taos is scheduled to be in our district as well. I'm not sure on St. Mike's and Santa Fe Indian School, but that's what the makeup of our district is going to look like.
Yeah, that might alleviate some of the problem that we're having as far as travel. Thank you.
No problem. Next slide. Again, our 22,000. This is our gate receipt budget for this year, 2016, 2017. The revenue that we took in was 86,000. It was a little down from the previous year. You remember the previous year we had outstanding gates for football. We also had pretty good rivalry in girls basketball with Los Alamos, which contributed to very, very high gates for the previous year before. So we were down a little bit. Cash balance we had carried over was 16,000. So that budget fund was 102,000, and we've already spent that entire budget for our 22,000 for this year. And that's our gate receipts fund.
Excuse me, Eric, what was it spent on?
We have a pie graph in here
Okay.
later on. We'll get to that, Ms. Board Member Salzar.
Thank you.
This next slide, again, this has little complicated revenue and expenditures because of the cash carryover. So for the next two slides, I'm going to have Ms. Myrna Garcia talk to it because of, again, the business practices that were done in 2013, 2014.
Okay, President Archuleta, board members, Superintendent Johnston, I'm going to explain a little history of the revenue and expenditures at Española Public Schools regarding the athletic fund and operational gate receipts. And the reason for this is to give you a little bit of knowledge of how the money was spent in the past so that we can go forward with aligning this budget accordingly. So what happened in 2013-14, as Eric and I went and did some research, we found that they collected $118,281. However, they covered 100% of the athletic expenses out of the fund, the gate receipt money, the fund, I'm gonna say fund 22. Instead of splitting it between operational and the gate receipt, so they spent it all out of the 22. And I can't explain why, because of whatever history. So what happened in 14-15, because of the deficit of that revenue, of the expenditures, what happened is there was no cash. So the cash that they did, so if you can go to the next slide so I can show what I'm talking about. See that first year? So the cash that they did start with, because of the over expenditure in 13-14, became a negative amount. So they were in the red, okay? So what happened is in 14-15, they had to make up for that deficit. So you take the 95,122 minus the 80,321. So if you go back to the previous slide where we were at, that's why they only had the $13,000 to spend, because they were trying to make up for the overspending in 13-14. And that's important. So then in 15-16, they realized that. So then what they did is they said, okay, we got to spend it accordingly. So then that's when they started to split the operational and the athletic fund, the gate receipt fund. So you have your athletics and operational, and then you have your athletics gate receipt fund. And so they raised $112,395, and they spent $95,000 in that year. The year that we are currently in, of course, we're only through May, so we're zeroed out, and so we had budgeted $100,000. We had a little bit of carryover, so they basically, between the encumbrances and what was actually spent, it's evened out. If anything that goes over will come out of the operational fund. So that's the little history there. And go back to the cash report. So 13-14 they raised $90,368, and they had a 13 carryover of 18. So then 14 goes into the next year. Of course, we have that negative. So then in 15-16, there's really no cash balance. Remember the previous slide? They spent 14. They raised 14. They spent 13. So 15-55 got carried over to 15-16. So and they had 110. So then this year, they were real careful, I guess, last year. So they came forward with 16,433 the year we're in. But if I include that with the actual receipts that came in, it's just at that 100,000 that we were talking about, just $2,000 over. So see what was happening is they overspent, they made up for it, and then they're trying to realign it. So go to the next slide. Okay, so this is just the expenditure. And so when they were going to present this presentation to you, they were just going to do this expenditure part, and I go, they're not going to understand how we could spend $200,000 in 13-14, only 13,000, and then go back up to the 100,000 where we're at more or less. So I told Eric and Maria, let me explain what happened with cash balance. So do you have any questions on that? Because in looking at the historical data, it wouldn't have made sense if you wouldn't have known that it was overspent in 13-14. And that could have been, I can't tell you the reasons why. You know, whoever was monitoring the accounts at that time, you know, so it got made up for it, I know.
And where is this documented, or
It's okay, so this is on our GL, and it's also in our audits from prior years. So you mean the negative amounts, or what do you mean?
how much is collected and?
Oh, how much is elected to be spent?
Yes.
That, I did not find any documentation, and so Mr. Vigil is here with you this evening. So the purpose of this presentation, we need to streamline this budget. You know, someone needs to make a decision, okay, are we gonna pay for student travel out of here? Are we gonna pay for it here? What are we gonna pay for out of operational? And what are we gonna pay out of gate receipts? So, yeah, you're right, there's no documentation for the past.
Exactly. Explain to me what operational money is supposed to go for.
Operational money is at the school district's discretion, so that's why you have your budget committees, and you have your groups, and you have your principals and community, so everyone can put input into the total operational budget. It is not discretionary, it's up to each school district to spend as they decide. So the athletic portion of the budget, it's up to our school district to decide how we're gonna use that money.
What is the recommendation of the PD?
The PED, okay, so we have done this analysis, now we have a budget committee. So it's a recommendation of PD to have your budget committee, to have Mr. Vigil come and present the information to you. and the budget committee and the community and people decide how this is gonna be done. Once you guys, or the community and budget committee decide, then I can put this operational part of the budget together. So if you're good with the next few slides that we're gonna show you, like, we'll go over that, and that's how you want it to be, then that's where we can, and then you can give us an amount and so on and so forth.
I have a question for Ms. Johnson. That didn't come out in our budget committee meetings that we would fund athletics, am I correct? That no one spoke on that we would be using operational money?
We did not discuss that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not
But
yet.
my understanding is that operational has been funding the athletic budget as you just,
And that's what we're gonna go over.
Okay.
We can get to the next slide, Andrew, please. So this next slide shows the total amount of money that was spent on athletics. Again, you know, we have operational making up for the athletic fund some years. So I wanted to see exactly how much money, that way you guys can see exactly how much money spent on a yearly basis. So again, 2013-14, that's when the only operational was actually salaries, which you'll see later on is about $280,000 a year just in salaries for athletics. So the next year, the business department decided just to take everything out of operational and not the athletics to make up from the previous year. 2015-16, again, it looks like most of it came out of operational, looks like close to 400,000, and the rest was out of athletics. And this year, again, we've already spent our 106 out of athletics, and then we already have the salaries out of operational, but we still have our spring sports salaries that are pending still. Those will still be taken care of. So again, I have very informational pie charts coming up pretty soon that are a little more explanatory. Get to the next slide, Andrew. Again, 14-15. 14-15 was the year that we only, out of our 22,000 fund, that they only did $13,000. Everything else was taken out of operational. So as you can see, most of that student travel, a little bit of official fees. That one, you know, it's tough to make sense of anything because there was so little money taken out of the athletic fund. So we can go to the next one. 15-16. Again, out of our athletic fund, most of it is student travel, officials fees. We do have a little bit of other charges, but again, to see the true picture, we'll have to get that with operational for that year to see exactly the total that was spent. Because again, what usually happens, what's happened is that we'll spend all the athletic fund, then the rest will come out of operational. Again, I have a proposal that will work at the end of the slide that we can look at, but I just want to give you a complete breakdown of all the years we've analyzed. Again, 16-17 currently, most of it's student travel. Out of our 22,000, officials fees again, security, overtime pay. If we can go ahead to the next slide again, the operational athletic budget. So this is our 11,000, our operational. So again, that's a $200,000 difference in operational from 13-14 to 14-15 to make up the deficit in the 22,000. 15-16 was probably a little more accurate of where the operational I feel should be on a yearly basis, which is about 407. And then again, we still have a lot of pending charges as far as salary for this year, but it's 208. But a lot of the student travel has come out of 22,000 this year. Next slide, Andrew. So this is our operational, again, expenditures from 14-15. This is the year that we pretty much took mostly everything except for that 13,000 that I showed you in the first pie chart out of operational. Again, so you look at the salaries, 286,000. So it takes about 280,000 per year in salaries for the athletic department. We look at student travel. This has 107,000. If you look, remember from the first slide, from the 22,000 for this same year, it was about 13,000. So it takes about 120,000 per year for student travel. So just between salaries alone, along with student travel, 280 plus 120, that's 400,000 that I feel should come out of our operational budget. I feel everything else should come out of our 22,000, out of our athletic budget, our gate receipt budget. And if you look at the charges there, that's, like I said, our game day expenses, which are officials and security, which, you know, our assessments by the NMA, which is like $7,000 a year to just compete. Our district assessment, which is another $1,000. Again, some supplies and materials. We've been very, very frugal with supplies and materials because we haven't had the money. But if we're able to take the 22,000, take student travel out of there, we can put that money towards the kids, towards equipment, instead of asking them to fundraise for their own equipment. Supplies, materials include first aid as well. So if we look at the next slide, that should be 15-16. Again, a lot of the money here was taken out of operational. You can see the pie chart breakdown of everything. Again, salaries are pretty consistent with what we're probably going to see. Again, some were taken out of 22,000, so we kind of have to piece everything together. Next slide. This current year, all the salaries, again, have been taken out of there, but we still have the spring salaries pending. Again, it's not just EVHS, it's also Carlos Vigil Middle School. Some student travel was taken out of there, but we're already, from here on out, since we maxed out the 22,000, the rest is gonna have to come out of operational for the remainder of the year.
Mr. Vigil, can I just ask, what is the norm in districts in terms of using operational? I mean, this problem seems pretty simple. Our gate receipts cannot cover the cost of our athletic program.
Exactly. I brought this again to the board previously, and we need to move. I feel like we have in the proposal I have in the future slide, again, where student travel and salaries come out of operational. All the other expenses come out of our 22,000. That way we can also purchase some needed equipment for the kids, and we can manage our budget effectively and maybe have a cash carryover from year to year in case of emergency in our 22,000 instead of spending the max and then having to take the rest out of operational. You'll see that in a future slide though. Our next slide is our coaches' salary schedule. You can see the salaries of our coaches. I know some board members have talked to me, some of the max salaries. I checked Roswell's max salary. Actually, their salary for a boys basketball coach is $13,000, for football $13,000. So theirs is double compared to what we pay. That's Roswell. We can get that off their website. So again, our max is $6,400 for a head coach in the sports of basketball, football, volleyball, wrestling, and cheer. You also have the middle school stipends as well. You can see that. Anybody have any questions on that?
I got a quick question. These salaries seem low. Can we do an analysis of area schools with 5A to get an average? Because seem pretty low to me.
I agree. I can definitely do a cost analysis. Again, that would probably be an increase in the operational budget, but I can definitely do that.
And again, what's an event manager?
It's a gym manager. It's consistent again with more 5A schools. Again, they help out, assist in any way possible. They help out with the officials. They help out with any situation that arises. If the scoreboard scorekeeper doesn't come in, they fill in. Again, it's pretty consistent with other schools throughout our District 2 5A and throughout the state, Class 5A.
So I'm just looking back at one of your slides here where it says operational athletic budget for, say, 2016, which was $407,000. So where on earth did we get the money for a $2 million football field?
2.5.
I want to know that because when it was brought to our attention, I had no idea that it was coming out of operational. And I think we deserve an answer for that.
I can answer to that.
Yes.
The football field is not coming out of operational.
We were told that by
Right, and so we had a meeting,
Maria.
Right, so Maria, it was.
Yes.
Maria, I and Bond Advisor, we had a meeting this week and that's being corrected. Okay, so we have a meeting next Thursday and we'll provide you with the correct funding sources.
So do you know where?
There's different funding sources, so I'll wait till next week, and then we'll come back and we'll give you the exact funding sources and amounts.
So where would she have gotten this information from then?
The original
Was it
purchase
on-
order was processed utilizing the operational fund, 100% of it.
So help me understand this. How does it change from that?
After review, okay, so the purchase order was processed through, the purchasing office. PED was provided the revision for the purchase order and they approved it under the operational. PED approved the revision. They did it during their takeover. So
Well,
now,
I think they had no choice because the contract was already written.
I'll let Maria review that and then she'll come back with a clear answer next week.
Yeah, I think the community needs to know that because, obviously operational money, in my understanding of what it means and represents, is it's supposed to be for the classroom, for the students, for the education. Yes, I understand that we have to have athletics, but 2.5 million is an extensive.
So we've had one meeting and we're gonna have another meeting next Thursday. 2 o'clock.
I too would like to see these funding sources.
Yeah.
And also the basketball goals, where do they come out of? Yes. The funding for the basketball goals, the affordables and,
SB9 monies.
okay.
And Board Member Salazar, I will be at that meeting about the football field next week as well, along with Mr. Cordova. So we will get a report for you.
Up next, we have our activity funds.
I do got a quick question, sorry. I'm looking here, and I know we have to save money, but I know the summer program, there used to be a stipend for the summer program, is that taken away?
Yes, sir, that was taken away. Also, the stipend for qualifying for the state tournament was taken away also.
Taken away by,
Superintendent Gutierrez took away the stipend for the state tournament. Esther Romero, you took away the summer stipends? That was done before my time
See,
here.
that's, you know,
The
you
summer
spend a lot of
stipends.
time in the summer with open gym and, you know.
Board
those
Member
minimum-
Archuleta, I agree. I think it hurts our chances of attracting, quality coaches. Next up, Alberto Garcia is going to talk about athletic activity funds. These are fundraising funds.
Okay, the third funding source for the athletic budget is the fundraising money. They're called non-instructional activities. They're non-budgeted, which means that we do not budget for these funds. They are strictly on a cash basis. These funds are raised by our students or sought by donations and golf tournaments, etc. They are set aside for the specific sport program. Each sport program has their own student activity fund, girls and then boys. The budget for these, when they talk about budget, there is no budget. They just raise money, they spend it, whatever's left gets carried forward into the new school year.
who's in charge of the money?
Okay, so each school organization, and I'm gonna just say in general, all student activity funds, they have to be overseen by a school principal, or the coach, or the athletic director, the teacher, the sponsor, booster club, etc. So there is a person designated for that program. So let's say Special Olympics, I just worked with him. And there's one person assigned to that, and he is really good about saying we need to raise money. So I brought this. So before they start raising money, they have to fill out this fundraising project authorization form. I'm gonna use this as an example, that's why I brought it. So they're gonna have a basketball camp. So we know the operational can't pay for it, there's no more gate money. So they're gonna raise money by, what's this? Oh, they're gonna have a basketball camp to buy equipment for basketball, because there's no money to buy the equipment, okay? So they're saying, okay, so we're gonna estimated profit, we're gonna raise $1,000, we're gonna buy equipment, and you can go into detail what that is. They're asking us to use the gym. They're gonna have, it's the ladies Thunderbolt basketball team. And he can tell you the details, but they start with this. They're gonna raise $1,000. They go get the money. Then there's all these rules that they have to follow and be accountable and turn the money in and give out a receipt to the people. It comes in, the schools deposit the money and we monitor it here in our office.
So private sellers don't need to hand in the money.
Excuse me?
So somebody is having a fundraiser for a private team, don't have to hand in money.
Not private teams, this is a school-sponsored
I'm asking,
activity.
do
Yeah.
private teams have to hand in the money or they keep it?
Okay,
There was cotton candy being sold from a private team at
Oh.
a gym. Do they get to keep, do they have to add in money? or they
actually,
keep it?
there's a rule on that, and I remember that, and they're not even supposed to be selling, they're gonna be competing against our own school-sponsored activities.
Exactly.
So the answer is no, they cannot, they shouldn't even be in there selling, because they're competing against our students. So I do remember that, I denied that, and they weren't allowed to sell, because that's not even our money.
They sold it all year ago, so who allowed it?
Who allowed it?
I was,
$1.50 a pop.
see, so whoever's in charge of that activity, like let's say they were at this basketball camp trying to do that, whoever's in charge of this basketball camp probably should have said, you know what, you're competing against my kids, you shouldn't be selling here. So whoever's in charge of that place, I would say,
That'd be the principal along with the athletic coordinator.
or whoever is like the coach or whoever's requesting the fundraiser, they're the ones asking for the fundraiser, so they're responsible for this fundraiser. So if this guy is having this basketball camp, then he needs to probably work with Mr. Villa and say, you know what, are they gonna have a concession, or who is our kids gonna sell? So then yeah, I guess it would have to be pre-approved.
I'd like to know who allowed that cotton candy. I want an answer.
Again, I have the approved fundraiser requisition form, you can see all the signatures on it, it was approved. Again, by the superintendents, by the business office at that time, I can show you the proof. And again, in terms of competition, I rotate the concession stands among our sports, that way they can raise money for their teams. Also,
Why not allow
DECA,
the cotton candy?
DECA was not competing with the same things that the concession stand was selling also, so DECA was allowed to sell because they were selling different items. Cotton candy was not something that was being sold also, so they were allowed to sell cotton candy.
I have a question on your booster club.
I have a slide in a second on booster club.
Let me just point out here, so the reason I did this is for your information, and it's also statute, but it does say in bullet 1, 2, 3, the district is responsible for the accountability of the agency funds, and we have to follow rules, but regardless, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, regardless of the method used to finance school activities, the school district is ultimately responsible for the funds, even though the actual control and operation of the funds are delegated to the respective school principals. And then I put in italics, no activity fund shall ever be permitted to incur deficit because of what we saw. And I know that Maria has hired a consultant to draft up some policies and procedures and internal controls. And what we want to do is we want to have the procedures in writing. Mr. Villa and I were talking about having a training again for all the coaches at the beginning of the year, right? And then we're going to have them sign where it says, it strongly recommends that all personnel involved with activity fund transactions or supervision of the same read, understand, and sign a sheet that sets forth the procedural requirements, and maybe we can avoid all those things that are happening. So now with this useful set of new internal controls that we're going to come up with, it's gonna be, and people will be held accountable. So, well, that's what I want to do.
Next slide, Andrew, please. Let's get to the Booster Club one, a couple more. I know there were some questions on the Booster Club, so I actually asked our Booster Club president, Andrea Pena, to come today, if there was any questions for her. I did a balance check as requested on August 1st, 2015. The balance was roughly $15,000. On 4/3/17, balance was 14,000. I know since that time, again, the Booster Club did contribute 3,000 to the rings that hasn't been encumbered, so their balance by today would be $11,000. An itemized report should be on your board books that details every expense. Again, I think the 15-16 year, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Panya, the Booster Club gave $1,000 to each sport for that year. That's why we had expenses of a high nature.
Well, as a former president of the Booster Club for 9 years, and I see one of my partners over here that we never bought rings. That was, in fact, if you read the bylaws, that was never in the bylaws. That was an illegal use of funds, because I know it's in the bylaws that we were not allowed to buy rings. They were only for athletics for the teams. Unless you guys have revised the bylaws.
Mr. Serrano, I spoke with the previous booster president and asked him personally if he could give me the bylaws or if there was anything written in the bylaws. And he specifically told me that there wasn't anything written in our bylaws.
No, they're here at the school. They're somewhere here at the school, because we had to turn them in. The superintendent asked us to turn them in, and so they'd have record of them. And maybe they get lost. I understand they get lost. People change positions, and I think since I was there, they've had you, they had Brad, but that was on those bylaws.
It would be nice if we could get a hold of those bylaws, just so that I could have them for my records also. I wasn't aware of that, and I do know that, we as a group, we debated it back and forth, and we knew that with everything that was going on with the community, we figured any positive impact would help these kids.
Well, my suggestion is if we can't find these bylaws, you guys need to, get some made.
Okay.
And you can borrow some from maybe another school and then tweak them. That way we have them on record. Because I know that was one of the things when we decided to form it had been gone for many years. And then we formed it again back then under our athletic director was Lenny Roybal then. Okay. And we had to redo everything and all the bylaws and present them to the board. We had to come in front of the board and give them to the board so they would okay them, and they read through them, and then months later they gave us the okay to use them. And they got to be somewhere. I'll look to see if I can find some, and I'll be glad to give them to you. But I suggest that if we can't find them, get a hold of maybe the McCurdy M Club has some, and maybe you can tweak them to fit a spindle.
Well, that'd be greatly appreciated if you could.
Next slide, Andrew, please. Again, some of the fundraising endeavors our athletes take on. They use the money to attend summer camps. I know we have team camps coming up. June for basketball, July also for volleyball. They're pretty costly. For example, Santa Fe Demon team camp for our basketball teams is $200 per team, so that's a $600 cost. So that's fundraising they need to do just to attend this team camp. That's an example of some of the money that they use for fundraising. Again, they use it for uniforms at times when they're out of their uniform rotation. We do have a 4-year rotation, which we do purchase uniforms, but sometimes on their own they purchase uniforms before that time because sometimes they want to get the high-end uniforms. So that's part of it as well. Next slide.
Eric, I have a question for you. Who determines what athletic group gets to use the bus services? For example, the bowling team they had to travel on their own. They never had a bus supplied to them. So who makes that decision and why some athletes utilize the buses and others don't?
Okay, so in terms of transportation, whenever we have a transportation request, we make that to the transportation department, and they supply us with the bus drivers and the bus. But bowling approached me when I first started here, that worked with me previously early about starting the bowling program. So again, we had no additional funding. We never allocated any additional funding for bowling. So to provide transportation for bowling, you know, that was part of the agreement when they started the program, that they would not incur any additional costs of the school district.
Board member, Mrs. Salazar, I'm sorry. The bowling team didn't have any financial costs, but I did get calls from parents and also from board members, and we did provide them 3 different times transportation route per team at no cost. Because we felt that they deserved it also. And they didn't have funding for it, and the driver donated their time, and we paid for the fuel out of our budget. So we did. That was the only time that we could accommodate them, but we didn't charge them anything because they had no funds.
Thank you.
Again, my budget proposals to move student travel and moves to operational budget. Again, this would total roughly $400,000. This would be consistent with other schools throughout the state. This would enable us to build up our $22,000, which is our gate receipt monies, where we could use that monies not only to pay for officials, for security, we could pay for other expenses, other contract services. An example of a typical game for boys basketball, when we had contracted security, they were getting $20 an hour. So you have 5 security, that's roughly $100 an hour that they're paying just in security costs for the game. Ticket takers are making $12 an hour, ticket sellers $12 an hour, your scorekeeper is getting $12 an hour, your scoreboard operator is getting $12 an hour. So there's a lot of expense that comes in game day operations. But again, if we could start building up our $22,000 where we could have perhaps a cash overflow throughout the years, we could purchase more equipment for our teams from our $22,000, and they would have less to fundraise for. Again, looking at it, salaries and benefits are the $11,000, travel, lodging, meals, transportation. That's my proposal, to keep it solely in $11,000 and put everything else in $22,000. Officials pay, security, again, all our fees, dues, supplies, our equipment, uniforms on a rotational basis, and professional development. That's my presentation. Is there any questions at this time?
Question for you.
Besides, you have an administrator's license? You have an administrator's license?
Mr. Hered, I do not have an administrator's license. I have 6 years as an athletic director of McCurdy School. It was a private school at the time, so I could be called an athletic director. 4 years experience as an athletic coordinator with Española Public Schools. I have 10 years experience as a head football coach, 2 years experience as an assistant football coach. I've coached in 4 All-Star games, 2 as a head, 2 as an assistant. I've been selected to the NRG Hall of Fame. My graduate studies, since you asked, have a 3.9 GPA with over 50 hours credit towards my master's degree. I'm lacking 1 class for my administrative degree.
Great to see that. And
Is this a personnel question, Ms. Johnston, that typically should be asked at a board meeting? Is this allowed at a board meeting, a personnel question?
I'll defer to Mrs. Romero, our Director of Human Resources.
President, board members, Ms. Johnston, it is a personnel issue to ask credentials of an employee at a public center.
okay, my apologies.
For the record, Superintendent Johnston, I consider this a form of bullying and harassment. I would just like that stated. Any other questions?
No, that was a good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is letter B, maintenance of facilities report by Mr. Adnan Cordova.
Good evening, Board President Archuleta, board members, Acting Superintendent Ms. Johnson. Mr. Trujillo will put my presentation very shortly for the maintenance department. I believe there should be a handout for each of the board members.
We'll sit over there, it's okay.
Okay, as you see on the first slide, is the mission of the department. The mission of the maintenance department in Española Public Schools to maintain the school facilities and grounds so as to create a safe and healthy, clean conditions, conduct to enhance the learning process with student, faculty, and visitors of each campus. Preventive maintenance and specification for school buildings are based on considerations related to identifiable district needs and are to be evaluated and adjusted accordingly. Our aim is to advance building maintenance and groundskeeping capabilities through systemic staff support as well as comprehensive standard and preventive maintenance programs. That's our mission statement. The next slide. That's the organizational chart for the facilities and maintenance department. We have the director of facilities, then we have our coordinator, our grounds crew, maintenance crew, overseeing construction, new projects, warehouse, and security. So there's a lot of operations that come out of our shop, out of our department. Next slide. We have there's our staffing. There's myself, Ms. Catherine Aranco, Mr. Joseph Gomez is the maintenance supervisor. Then it goes down. We have some vacancies currently open right now. We have approximately 3 vacancies in maintenance. We have 2 positions in warehouse. We have an employee that fluctuates from ground and maintenance. We have a water waste treatment operator, which is a 0.6 position. We have that should be the plumbing technician. There's a typo there. We have an electrician, and then we have the rest of the grounds crew. So that's the staffing right there for the maintenance portion of it. Next slide, please. This is something that I want to talk about a little bit, about reclassifying one of the positions.
Who's your foreman, who's your second in charge?
I have Joseph Gomez right now. He's being paid the stipend as the maintenance.
So you're available, he's kind of the guy who takes over his place?
Yeah, he gets the calls and he goes out
Yeah.
and stuff, yeah, like that. Again, depending on if he's tied up on different projects,
So
depending on
you always have somebody to cover
Yes.
each year out.
yes.
I have a question for you on, your electrician, does he have a J98 or does he have his contractor's license?
He does have his journeyman's license. He does have his journeyman's license. He does keep it up, and our plumber does also. And they get paid their stipends off of that. So as they need to make sure that they bring it in at the end of each year to make sure that they still
They
maintain.
certified basically.
Yeah. So going on to the next slide, that position reclassification. Go back. I know there have been some issues and doing some walkthroughs on some of the facilities on the quality of painting. And some of the repair work, like on the sheetrock and stuff, sometimes isn't done to a high standard or to a quality level. Right now, the painting is being done by the custodians. Over the summer, Mr. Gomez goes out and gets a list of materials of what they need. What we would like to do is maybe reclassify this a maintenance position to where it would be considered maybe a painter, coder, and maintenance position. So it would be more of a craft. It's more of a craft and it needs more expertise as fine as finesse as far as painting goes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, is a certified painter, licensed painter, or not?
There's, in fact, that's the website, Mr. If Andrew could open that up.
We're kind of known as a finisher, the last ones to be the.
There are journeymen, being from the crafts myself, there is a journeyman painter.
Yeah, so Mr. Trujillo, if you could open up I did pull up that one right there. That would be a job description that we would be able to sort of blanket off of, and attach that to all the board book. It gives the nature of the work, the description of the occupation, and then it gives the levels. Of course, there's like a basic and operational and an advanced. And it sort of gives these roles. What would be ideal in this type of situation is we would have, instead of a maintenance worker, it would be a craft. It would be sort of, we would have a painter, coder, but yet at the same time, if there was maintenance duties and there wasn't any painting to be done, he would still.
We had the same concept at the hospital. He's a painter when there's painting, and when there's not, he's a plumber, or not a plumber, but minor things that he would do. So.
Yeah, and I discussed this with Ms. Johnson. This is something that we're looking into, just so we can get a little bit just quality. I mean, there's some areas that get painted, like in the bottoms of the toilets, or from some of the areas that don't get masked. And it's a skill to paint, and I'm not taking anything away from the custodians whatsoever. But they do have a lot of responsibility to do in the summer to get their areas cleaned up. So I feel that maybe this would be something that we would look at. So again, the reclassification of a maintenance vacancy would be reclassified to a painter. This would be justified to employ a person with a skill and craft of doing quality work of painting and making wall repairs at a journeyman.
On our walkthroughs that we had a lot of complaints from office staff that they were painting over the wall receptacles, the switches, and I just, I know it's an old building and it's 45 years old, but it doesn't mean it has to be done the way it's done. And when you and I had this walkthrough, I did bring it up to our superintendent that I thought it was kind of really bad craftsmanship. I mean, I think this is a good idea to bring in somebody that has experience at taping, texturing, and they do this. I mean, painters do this on the outside world, even almost where I work. And but I understand that this is a necessity, I think, because you and I had a lot to talk about on this problem.
Yeah, and there is a lot of painting that needs to get done, and especially in middle school and high school, kids are a little rougher and stuff, so they're making holes in walls and stuff. So to get the proper repair and get the right texture matching and all of that, I think this would be an ideal position for the district. I think it would benefit the district. So it's something that we can look into. The next slide. Here's just some of the maintenance department, the daily duties of what the maintenance staff goes through. I started off with this, just, we're coming out of winter, remove snow and ice from sidewalks, entries as needed, remove trash from the lawn, shrubs, brushes, sidewalks, stairways, and parking lots. They review their daily work orders, repair damage and soil and sealing tiles as needed, replace electrical lamps, breakers, fuses, and ballasts if needed, check boilers, mechanical, electrical, and telephone rooms, listen for unusual noises, and check for excessive heat and equipment vibrations. Ensure windows and roof accesses are secured nightly. Next slide. Then weekly, just double checking the revamping of the exterior building and parking lots, just to make sure that we have sufficient exterior lighting. Remove rubbish from property, trim lawn and mow edges, remove lawn trimmings, remove visible weeds, sweep gutters, rake and clean gravel, test irrigation systems as needed. Then we go to the monthly and quarterly. They reset the time clocks, verify cycling of surge pumps. That would be like our wastewater person. Restore cracks and blemishes on building exterior to a certain point. Again, that would go back to the painter and coder to get that quality finish on those repairs. Verify that there's adequate supplies of filters, lamps, etc. Activate lawn sprinkler irrigation systems, test, inspect, and repair. Apply pre-emergent weed control. Apply broadleaf weed control in lawns. Aerate, fertilize lawns, fertilize trees and shrubs. Right now we have on those three right there, actually those 5 bullets, we have a contractor right now that maintains our football field, our baseball fields, and some of our lawns, like in Ocala and some of those areas. So he's been contracted to do this type of work. So he's been doing that.
Who is the contractor?
The contractor, it is Greenland. Daniel Romero is his name. He's from out of Los Alamos.
I have a question on the lighting. Someone told me that the custodians replaced the lamps.
Yeah, and I was going to get to that on the next slide and address that just because of the conversation that we did have, and it is a valid concern.
You know, what I'd like to see is weed control in between the concrete joints at the schools. I know someone has a terrible thing that you see the weeds growing straight up through the concrete. And after a while, that'll undermine the concrete.
Yeah, and they'll start to push up the concrete. We've been trying different types of weed killer. We sort of have to use the green type just because we're around like the kids and stuff.
Well, during the summer, if you go back to what's Roundup's acceptable, you don't even need a permit to.
Yeah, that's what we've been trying now this season. We bought some Roundup Pro and we bought it in a concentrate form. And that way we're doing some testing to see the ground.
I can see that, because at some point you can see that it's, where there's a seam, there's a weed on concrete and asphalt.
And again, how I say, we do have some vacancies currently right now, so we are trying to catch up on some of the ground maintenance. So now here within the next month, we should be getting fully staffed again and get right back on top of these things. So we go to custodial. The custodial section, the principals at each site are the direct supervisors of the custodial staff. The site principals set their work schedules, they set their cleaning areas, they monitor the quality of work and cleanliness, they do the disciplinary actions, their evaluations of rehire and non-hire, and they review and approve all custodial orders at each of their sites. If you go to the next site, those are the number of custodial employees right now at each one of the school sites. Another thing that I brought to Ms. Johnson's attention when we were talking about this was at those areas that just have the one custodian, we would like to see at least a 1.5 custodian, just for safety reasons, in case there's some heavy lifting or whatever. We would say for example, Hernandez and Abiquiu would share a custodian, so it would be 2.5 days at one place and 2.5 at the other. Just for safety. I mean, just it's sort of hard sometimes if you have, especially in the summer, we did buy them the proper equipment to lift desks and move so they can strip and wax the floors, but at the same time, that extra person is a help on that heavy lifting. So that's something that we would like to see would be, I believe, an addition of 2.5.
Well, on your organizational chart, you had custodians were under you.
Yes,
Here I see the slide before says that they are, their direct supervisors and principal.
yeah, well, they're under the maintenance department, but the previous superintendent was moving towards putting them towards under the principals, as far as their daily duties, and they get to evaluate them on a daily basis versus us having to be out there trying to get this and that and the other. So right now the principals are doing their direct supervisors. But if there's any issues that come up where there's different types of equipment that may be requested or needed, or any type of help, then they come to us and then we go and we assist them on any.
So the principal's in charge of disciplining them if they're late or whatever,
Yes.
and then you have the final say, or? Not really?
I go and I would, either myself or Ms. Romero, we would both go and sit in and just to make sure that the NEA agreement is being met and that we're following policy and procedure as far as any discipline goes towards these custodians.
I just feel that they're getting stretched a little thin, with being in charge of custodian, security, maintenance, grounds crew. That's, a little difficult to manage,
Yeah, it stretches.
So I think by doing that, it's probably best for everybody.
And again, I would say that the principals see them every day. They see day-to-day operation of what areas need more attention and how they can set their schedules. And
That makes sense.
so then we go to the custodial responsibilities. Is the one right there, and then it's raising the flag, snow removal in some areas, sweeping sidewalks, entryways, ensuring that weeds and debris are removed from areas, maintaining the playgrounds, removing trash, replenishing restroom supplies, reviewing the janitorial report for discrepancies to make sure there's no supplies missing, reviewing the assigned work orders by the site principal to take action, replacing damaged or soil ceiling tiles that can be reached up to a 6-foot ladder. On that one, what we do, and we talked about this one also, is if it's on a 6-foot ladder, they would be able to do just the square ones. If there's any type of cutting or customization of the ceiling tile, then that would become the maintenance crew. And then if you go to the next slide, it's where it talks about replacing the light bulbs and lamps as needed. Any light bulbs that can be reached with a 6-foot ladder. That's a concern just because sometimes it's more than just the light bulb. It could be a ballast, it could be shorted out, it could be touching. There could actually be an actual wire nut connection that's loose. If they don't have the experience in electricity, they might get up there and try to not turn off the breaker and try to do a quick repair, and that might lead to an injury. So what we're looking at is maybe taking that job duty away from them, and then just have them putting it as a work order and sending our electrician to get that done. Because a lot of times on these older fixtures, most of the time it is the ballast that goes out more than the bulb itself, or just a loose wire. So we don't want them to be dealing with that type of situation. Check boiler, mechanical, electrical, telephone rooms, listen for unusual noises. Again, if they hear something, they report it right away to the office manager or principal. From there, they will make the work order or the call to maintenance to go get that checked out. And then at the end of the day, they ensure that the doors, windows, and roof access are secured before they leave. We did do that at the high school. We met with Mr. Archuleta, being that we had the graffiti and the issues that were happening on the football field. So that was one of our main concerns also, that we're paying a lot of money for that field. So, and the gate was staying open, so we met and we made sure that the custodians at the end of the night, before they leave, that all those get locked, because before they were staying open just 24 hours. So the warehouse, employee job duties, daily delivery of mail to all schools, deposit to the bank from every school if they have deposits, food order deliveries to the school sites, deliver custodial school supplies, help unload commodity trucks, take any certified mail to the post office, prepare a list of custodial orders, clean out the warehouse once a week, and inventory. Facility use, okay, so then we get to the facility usage guidelines. I know there was an issue a while back, we're going back and forth on the facility usage form. I sat with Ms. Johnson, we came up with some guidelines and the proper procedure for the usage. So a facility usage form can be found on the district website. The procedure for approval is follows. For filling out, form to be filled out completely by requesting team, group, or etc. From there, the form goes to the school site principal for review and to make sure that it's completely filled out. Example, dates, times, purpose, insurance, concussion forms, etc. From there, it goes to a superintendent. She receives a completed form and reviews it and either approves or disapproves the usage. The approved user will then go to the business office and leave a $150 deposit for the facility key. Once the approved user gets the receipt from the business office, they will take a copy of the receipt along with a copy of the approved usage form to the maintenance department to get issued a key for the approved facility and that facility only. After the approval time frame for that facility usage has expired, the user will return the key to the maintenance department and will be issued a signed receipt to take to redeem their $150 key deposit. Because what was happening in the past is they would fill out the form and then we would issue a key, but we didn't have a way of getting that key back. I mean, sometimes they would say, oh, we lost the key, or there's different things. So Ms. Johnson sat down.
Mr. Porter, when did that take place? When did this form, didn't we already have one that was approved?
We had a form that was approved. If you scroll down, it has the cash deposit up one page. Cash fees in accordance with specific conditions understood, the following applies to cash fees or cash deposits. So it's gonna be enforced for the key.
When did this start taking place?
I would say that we have not initiated this yet. This was the first go, and what we really need to do is look at our board policy in terms of facilities use and update that.
Actually, Gino's taking a look at the policy also, so it needs to be revised, so.
So have individuals been thrown out, or organizations been thrown out of gyms?
Not to my knowledge that they've been thrown out. I mean,
Or have they been asked not to attend, or not to participate in the organization at schools?
they've been asked to provide the copy of the facility usage form per site.
And I might add that once in a blue moon, we run into, I know there was one school, for some reason, there were 3 organizations that wanted to use a gym like on a Tuesday night, 5:30 to 7:30. So, that happens once in a blue moon. But we sorted that out.
So you said that they come for a key, and so the locks haven't been changed, so we're issuing more keys, and granted, we have a form now, but there's keys out there that other people have. It was brought to my attention that they had a basketball tournament in Abiquiu, and when I asked the question, well, how did they get a key to, nobody knew. I mean, I'm just saying, how are these people using our facilities, and if there's outstanding keys out there, even if we have a form now, and the good people here are gonna come they're gonna fill out their form, but what about the people that have outstanding keys that if we don't know who has them?
That's another concern that we and Ms. Johnson has discussed as far as rekeying, all of the facilities, the gyms themselves. And then I have a slide, one of the slides as far as access control goes, that we can start looking into as far as like a badging system. So I
Right.
can have that.
So doing the key deposit, you're absolutely right, we couldn't do that now until buildings were rekeyed somehow. And we talked about the abundance of keys floating in the community at an earlier meeting.
And I got a quick question. So a gentleman sent me an email, my school email, that how does he go about using the gymnasium for a graduation party? So I referred him to Denise, I want to receive that email. But how would that work? And I know.
On the district website, I believe there's the guidelines of what's allowable and what isn't allowable. I know in the past, sometimes a community center isn't available for a funeral, for example. And they would request for an hour on a Saturday or Sunday for a funeral for the food. As far as graduation parties, and I go, again, I say there was policies and guidelines in place before, so that would be something that the board would have to review again, and it would be either approved or disapproved again by the superintendent at that point. The district facility staffing, based off of the public school finance authority, we have approximately 804,000 square feet. We have about 283 site acres. We currently have 30 custodians for our sites. Maintenance staff, FT positions, we have 9, and we have 5 groundskeeper positions. The next one, where we were, the facilities that were in need of repair and upgrade, HVAC controls, energy savings. Our FMR scores were pretty low. We're understaffed in maintenance and overstaffed in custodial. We didn't have a groundskeeping crew, and we had underutilized space. We have aging school facilities, and then we had some liabilities from Palms and Associates. Over the past few years, we've been improving this. We've been striving to get all of this under control. And we have aging infrastructure. We have a lot of facilities that we really need to take a look at and see what we're going to do with them. One of the ones that should worry us one of them is the most is the high school. I mean, just because it was built in the 70s. Right now, the district's portion, if we were to say we were to go out for a bond and get it passed, the district's portion would be approximately $21 million. It costs us between $60 to $75 million to renovate the high school right now. And those are humongous numbers. So that's where all our kids land up. That's where all the students land, and that's where they go. So we need to really start looking at that. We also have Chimayo, we have Hernandez, we have Abiquiu, and I'll get to those projects right now, but that's just one thing I wanted to let you guys know on the high school. And then it's sort of a double-edged sword, the way the funding works, because if we start pumping money into these facilities, their ranking goes up. So then when it's time for the state to help fund the project, we're out of the top 50, we're out of the top 100, depends on how they're basing off their funding. So it's sort of a double-edged sword.
We kind of have to keep them inhabitable and maybe have the creatures' comforts.
Yeah, so we sort of have to just, we can keep the lights on, and safety and security, and make sure the kids as long as it's anything to do with that, we can do. But if we put like a new roof and stuff, or new windows, or new coatings and stuff, it starts sending us out of the.
So painting would drop us out of the. You know what? I know it's a 40-year-old building, but I see 40-year-old buildings in Los Alamos. I see 40-year-old buildings in Santa Fe. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's a 40-year-old building and it has to look like that. I mean, I'll be honest with you. The day we walked, I came back and I spoke to my wife about this, and I told her, I was like shell shocked. I mean, it's an old building, but it doesn't have to be a dirty old building.
Exactly.
I mean, a coat of paint goes a long way, and it doesn't drop us down to, anything in the rankings if you put a coat of paint. I would like to see that place is bright. It just, for learning environment, it's a dingy old building, but with a coat of paint, it could be made to look a lot nicer for our students and our staff.
And that's why if we were to go with an in-house painter, because anytime that we contract out, then it becomes a project. So you're putting, and if we do it as a maintenance, or we do maintenance contract, it's just maintaining the building versus doing any type of new construction or new adding on it. So there's that fine line of the way we describe it when we make our requisitions and when we make our purchase orders.
Hey, Alon, I have a quick question for you. How about the gym roof at San Juan? I've literally been there for basketball games, and I've been there on a rainstorm when they're having lunch, and teachers literally move the tables. I can go and tell you right where the holes are, just looking straight up.
Yeah.
That has to be addressed quick.
And that, how I say that took time. That was right during the state, when the state took over, and we were having issues getting the purchase orders to get these repairs in place. So I say these repairs, have taken place. I know that there's some other leaks now that have been brought to our attention. So how I say that roof, again, if we were to re-roof that school, which that would be a good candidate because of where the ranking is right now. For example, that one I think is in the 250s, the 300s. So it has the new kindergarten section. It had been re-roofed and remodeled, sort of the older section. So it's just that gymnasium area and those classrooms. So that would be like a good project, a good candidate for a project. But again, how I say, we would have to finish these other ones that we have already started, and see how our funding source is to do some of that. Because again, a roof of that caliber is probably, you're talking about between probably $400,000 or $500,000.
But it has to be.
Yeah.
I see it. I literally sat there, and they have 8 kids with moms, and the game goes down to this side, and 4 kids go and try the court, and the game comes back to this side, and the other 4 kids run back to the side.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah. And we have been,
it's ridiculous.
yeah, and we've been trying to address these. We've been trying to address it. We had issues at this school to where the same thing in classrooms. It was raining in the classroom, and actually, the ceiling tile would actually come down, and we'd have to put buckets and stuff. So, and this
practice of band-aids to try and get us to a new facility and put the cast.
Mr. Cordova, a question that was brought to my attention, because that's one of the schools in my districts that I represent. Parents have approached me and told me that there's mold in that room. Is that a hazard to a kid? I'm just worried about hazard to our kids there.
Anytime that there's been, if it's on one, for example, we get it tested. If there's a difference from mold to mildew to, there was a leak, there was a water leak at San Juan, for example. We ran away, we contacted the contractor to go out, get the carpet dry, we got everything dried out. After all that was taken care of, they do an actual mold test, they get it sent off, and we get it certified. That happened in Arandas last year, a couple years ago also. We kept getting reports that there was mold behind the paint and all these things. So what we do is, we know that mold is, it can be dangerous, especially the black mold and all that. So what we do is, things like that, we go and we get them tested, we get it certified, and we get a copy of it. And that way we can provide a copy to whoever.
Yeah, maybe for peace of mind, we can provide this principal so she can let the parents know, so there's just this.
And I think I did email her that, but I'll double check again.
Out there, because it's.
Yeah, not for your own protection and our protection. For $30, you can go to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy a kit, a mold kit. If it comes back positive or questionable, then you bring in a professional to.
But does it have to be state certified?
That's why I've done it that way, just because of the kids, I don't
Well, you know,
know.
for yours, you don't
Yeah.
have to call if, you know, it has a very distinct smell, like, bread, but it's getting stale.
Yeah, there's like the difference from mildew to the
Yeah.
mold smell, so, but that's something,
Yeah, when bread's like fermenting or something like that, you get that odor.
so
You
then,
know, mildew is simple to me with Clorox.
yeah. And then the other thing is it doesn't grow onto like concrete and stuff like that, like the mold itself, just mildew and stuff. The mold will grow onto like porous type, like lumber and sheetrock and stuff like that.
Cinder block.
Yeah. So where we are now, we've been, over the past few years, we've been trying to upgrade the HVAC controls and units for better efficiency operation. Again, that's another touchy situation because if we replace a unit, that goes against the ranking of the school, but yet if we maintain it and repair it, then, I mean, that, again, it's a double-edged sword.
You gotta supply creature comfort.
Yeah. We've been raising the FMAR score, for example. One of the scores that we had at JHR was a low score. It was, I think, right around like 36. We tackled it and we improved it to like an 85. So the state actually called us to congratulate the district for, it was one of the largest improvements of one of the facilities throughout the whole state. So that goes to show that we have good maintenance employees that can get these things done. We've realigned staff, maintenance, custodial, and grounds per the standards, and it helps with the district funding for the projects with the PSCOC. Pump and associate finding, repair and improving, finding lower district liability costs, and we're working on school safety. In parentheses, access control. So we go to the next slide. Here's some of the current ongoing projects. Again, there's the EVHS sports field. We have the Abiquiu Elementary School, Velarde Elementary School, Central Office Warehouse Facility. Then we have district-wide small projects. We need to do the removal of the goals. We have HVAC systems, lighting, routine maintenance, roof leaks. The list goes on and on, just of the small projects that we have. There's some pictures and I can touch base and we'll go through them. The first picture there was one of the old, the way the field looked before. And you go look at, then you can see the deteriorated track surface and the waves of the roots that were in the track surface. The bleachers, those bleachers, they were non-ADA compliant. Actually, even the spacing in between was a safety issue for small children. The next slide. That's during construction of the field. That's after the removal of the bleachers, the installation of the subgrade. That's the contractor right there installing some of the turf. That's after the turf had been installed.
Sorry to interrupt, but was that accident, was this trailer, was it fixed?
Yes, yeah, it was repaired. I think it was to the tune of maybe like $1,500.
Is it noticeable or?
No, it's not noticeable. What it looked like was somebody drove onto the field. It could have been worse. I don't think that they meant to. When they turned is when the tires spun, and that's when they did where it melted the rubber a little bit. But I think it was intentionally done to be driven on, but it wasn't an actual.
Yeah.
But the repairs were done and it was taken care of. So there's those. There's a picture of the central office building itself. It's already in the wall stages. They're doing they're getting the walls erected. That's looking at the east, looking east for the transportation warehouse portion of the building. There's another picture of
Represents us as our, yeah,
myself.
we don't have a contract out to someone.
No, I oversee. We have
So you're overseeing like the compaction test, the GEO test.
all of that, all
And
of
it
those
comes to
tests.
that.
So all of those tests, I go out on site when they're actually doing the testing. I visually see it and then we
Who's
send
doing
it to
the testing?
Amco was one of the ones, yeah, was the one who's doing it. So I have all the reports and I put them in a binder. So each project has its own binder. It shows all the pay apps, it shows the wage rates, it shows all the compaction testing, it shows the quality of the concrete. I have all of that. So what we do is we meet on a bi-weekly basis on all of our projects. I do a walkthrough, complete walkthrough with the contractor, the subcontractor. Again, that's my background.
So you did the cost analogy of what these projects were gonna cost since it went to a no bid?
Yes, yes, we do.
Where should see that?
Yeah, I make sure that,
Can we have a copy of that?
yes, yes.
Well, I have a question for you. It's a state funded project, are they getting paid Davis Bacon wage?
Actually,
Wage rate,
that is just a wage rate decision. That is,
Davis Bacon is federal,
they're not,
and wage rate is state of New Mexico.
just CID itself is the one that sets the wage rate for what
One's federal, one's state. Federal is like the lab is Davis Bacon. Any federal project will be Davis Bacon. Workforce, which is wage rates, determines the base of where the project's located, and they determine the salary there. If it's further north into the mountains, they give the employee, they subsidize them for working further away from their location.
So there's another picture of the central office. As far as the other projects I'm going to talk about real quick before I get to that slide. Abbey Elementary School, right now we had awarded an architect to do the design and development stage for Abbey Q. There was an issue where it wasn't advertised properly, so the state cut that out of so we had to pull that award, had to send it back out to bid. So it's in the business office.
Which one?
Abbey Q.
What happened to Chimayo Elementary? You were ranked 35.
Chima Elementary, yeah, that one's ranked low also. That one, we did apply for it, but we don't have the funding. The district has to have our portion of the funding to move forward with the full application. So we would have to have our portion before we could move forward.
We did have a football field.
And then, so for Abbey Hill Elementary, there's we did a full assessment of the needs for that school, so that project, that portion of it's been completed. Again, once the design and development architect group is selected, we'll bring it to the board for review. Velarde Elementary School, we were going back and forth on that project, being that in 2012 it was a standard-based award. It was tabled at the time by the board at that time. So it sat and sat. So we went back and we tried this past year to revamp that project and get our funding source from the state. Well, being that the enrollment has dropped in that school, they recommended we go with a systems-based. The difference from a systems-based to a standard-based, the standard-based is a full renovation. A systems-based is just your roofing, your HVAC, your windows, your doors, plumbing, to that effect. By them not awarding, they did not re-award the standard base just because the district had sat on it and hadn't come to a decision. So we need to we have a deadline to fill out the full systems-based award that they gave us. So once I get a little bit more information, Ms. Johnson and I are going to meet with the business office on that funding and make sure, and we'll bring it to the board.
Is this
with a standard base, if the standard base would have been awarded, the funding would have been totally different from what the design previously was. The design was previously, it would have had to been completely redesigned. The code book has now changed from 2009, it has changed, so anything past December 31st of last year goes into the new code, so all of those plans would have to been reviewed, revised, it would sort of been, had to been completely redone. So right now we're at the systems-based part of that project. So again, once we review the funding, we'll bring that back to the board. So the next one, where we're going, provide adequate training and opportunity for the staff. Again, how I say we're trying to raise that more score to 85 and 90 district-wide. We've been doing in a few of the facilities. Create a better tracking and accountability system for supplies at each site. Continue to work with local entities, tribes, and public and different foundations. Renovate Abbey Elementary School, which that's the project we're doing now. And again, I put in there the high school just because of the amount. I know Mr. Leo Valdez will have a presentation here soon to the board about bonding and bond capacity and how the bond works. Again, looking at that, say if you go out to bond and now in 2018, if it were to pass, you're looking at not even having boots on the ground to touch that high school 5 to 7 years out. By the time you get the bonding passed and by the time you get the design, the development, all of that going, I mean, you're looking that far out. So that's why I have it there just to show that, I mean, if that would be something that the board would be looking to do and dedicate all that funding just for the high school, and it could be written that way. Because we're looking at, again, 5 to 6 years out once if it were to pass, and then continue to stay on a positive track, moving the district forward for the children of our valley, we all call home. And we go to the next one, talking about access control. There's 12 vendors on the statewide price agreement, and we'll open that up now. That does access control, like the badging systems. It averages, it's a wireless system, it averages approximately about $2,000 a door, is what it comes out to be, ballpark, without them coming out and actually doing an actual quote or cost analysis. And I put that up there for you guys to review because it gives all the pricing. It gives the list of the vendors that have already been approved by the state for this. Again, this project would need to be technology-based, technology involvement with it. As far as the facility end goes, we would identify the doors and the facilities, but it just gives, it's the whole breakdown. It's a complete RFP price agreement.
Would this be put out to bid or you're going through CES?
That would actually, that's already been put out to bid. That's an actual price agreement that we can piggyback off the state. There's actually 12 vendors.
I think we'd save more money if we put it out to bid and do it like that as to go up to statewide.
We could, or we could do it both ways. We could go out to RFP and maybe do a cost comparison because they do give the percentages there. But we could, I mean, again, it'd be up to the discretion of the board of the.
You said it was technology based, so right now our central at the high school. I mean, we've been studying this, the technology committee, and even now, I don't think we have the capacity to have cameras, to have these kind of things. It's going to be through the internet or through our local technology department. We don't have that bandwidth to do this. I mean, not according to the figures that I see. I mean, we're going to meet with Harmonics here hopefully within the next week, I would think, to get some figures, because I want to know what they tested, how they tested. And according to the figures that I have with our tech committee, we're way below that we don't have enough bandwidth. And I mean, you and I discussed this, I've discussed it with the tech committee, with Ms. Johnson. And right now, I don't see this happening. I really don't, because we pay $400,000 for phones, and I can guarantee you that they are not going to work. I mean, somebody got ahead of ourselves on this thing, and it's just, we don't have the capacity. We don't have the bandwidth to do this unless we go to ReadyNet, and which there was gig speeds, and right now we're waiting on this meeting to determine if we can even do it. They're willing to give us some schools, but through the phone company, it's not going to happen. They don't have enough bandwidth.
And I just did some research on it, and it runs, I guess, off, like it's wireless. Again, I'm not a tech person, so I would take you guys' word on that. But I was saying it's an IP-based keyless entry through fobs, photo badge, or fingerprint. It operates through power and network outages. It's available with cell phone credentials. It integrates into your existing IT network. It's hosted and highly secure. Lower total cost of ownership. It's web-based interference with remote management, and it's real-time operations. So that's.
We'll let you know what transpires. I invited you to the tech committee meeting when you have it, and that way we can get a better understanding to see what this can be done.
And how I said was, I wanted to put in my presentation just for the availability. It's an option as far
You have
as.
that at the hospital, it's a very nice system.
When I worked at Game Fish, it was one of the projects that was spearheaded also, and it was nice because you could limit access to different areas, different personnel. It's a temporary for facility usage. It would only open a gym from a certain time to a certain time, and then it gives you a record of who's assigned that badge, and if they tried to get in after. So say if their time frame ends at 7:30 and they tried to get in at 8:30, it documents it and it records it.
It really is a good system.
They have it at the lab.
It is, it's nice. And that's my presentation. I stand for any questions.
I got a quick question, Alan. Is there a way we can mark our vehicles? And I went to one of the schools and I didn't know it was one of our own vehicles, but it was parked in the back and got a little leery. But if we have a marking, at least we know.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, we can order some decals and get them
Just a little
decal.
more question, and maybe also getting our staff maybe some uniforms. I came in to pick up a board check, and I guess he was a custodian, but he had the backwards cap and the baggy Raider shirt, and it just didn't look too professional.
And that's the thing that we have started to it was brought to my attention also. Me and Mr. Serrano talked about it also, was just to revamp the dress code. Again, in the past, we have provided them uniforms, even winter jackets and safety shoes. The district had provided it in the past. Now that the state came in and took over, they didn't feel that we had enough justification that we had given them. Mrs. Quintana and myself, we've tried. We actually got the requisitions in place. We gave them an option of, we were always given an option of where they wanted to purchase their boots, or purchase it locally, either at Laredo Woodley or at the feed store. In the past, Ms. Quintana did the same thing with her cooks, with the slip shoes and to prevent slips, trips, and falls. But again, we've been trying hard to get them their uniforms, and again, I would say we purchased them jackets, long sleeve shirts, actually some steel toe boots, and they were embroidered, and they said Española Public School Maintenance Department and stuff. So we did have that in the past. It's just that right now we're sort of at an impasse with the state on getting it justified.
And just know shirts, $5, and if it's a t-shirt, it just.
Yeah, And that's what, and we actually were getting them decent quality, I don't remember what it was, but we were giving each, I think it was like $450 a year is what we were giving them, and that would get them, I think it was like 3 shirts, a good pair of boots, a pair of pants, and I think it was a pair of either coveralls or like a jacket. So we were, I mean,
I think it looks more professional.
yeah. And how I say it's just that right now we're at an impasse with the state at that point, but we have been trying diligently to get that back in place.
Thank you.
Okay, you can replace the blocks that are missing.
We're working on that right now. We're working on that. Those will be done by next week.
They've been something like several years that.
Yeah. Yeah, they have been. So they should be done no later next Wednesday.
Another deal that I, been concerned about. We had that little machine that used to clean our floors. Is that still available? Because I see the gentleman doing it by hand. And that's a lot to do by hand for 2 people mopping the floors. We said that.
We do have a machine. We have more of them at the high school. We need to get some for here. That's something that we had looked at to try to start writing into our budget. Because at the time when we followed the guidelines of the PSFA recommendations for the staff, custodial staffing, it did include updating new machines, new equipment. The thing is that some of those equipment, they range between $13,000 and $20,000 a piece. A lot of times when they go out, or if we don't have the proper training on them, they go out and it sometimes costs more to repair it than it is to replace it. So right now, we have approximately about $25,000 set aside to get a machine for here for the middle school. Just because it is, I mean,
It's a lot to guys.
yeah.
Increases injuries and.
It does, and that's what we want to look at in the future to maybe buy, if we're going to afford to buy 1 or 2 million for the larger areas, and then get one, maybe like a push type for the other school sites, and get them the proper training that they need.
Who is going to replace the blocks?
The one that's going to do it is Arlen Construction.
I would like to see that opened up. I think it's a one-source thing, and I think we're being overcharged on it. I think you probably need to put it out to bid and bring in several vendors so we get the best price. How do we know we're getting a good deal with it?
Right now, we review their bidding process, and then they have a set price that they were awarded at the time.
When was that awarded? I
Um,
never saw the advertisement.
It was awarded probably 2 years ago. It was for general construction, and I can provide you a copy of the RFP that was at the time.
It was advertised in the Rio Grande Sun.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, it was.
But, I
And
think in our best interest, we should re-advertise it and bring, open it up more to other contractors, so we have a better process of getting the best price for us. And once you come, do that competition, we've got to find.
competitive competition.
Yeah, no, this one source has to end now. Maybe we can get off of that, it's the end of the year, and we can work on something like that. And you get 3-4 contractors to bid on whatever maintenance your staff can't handle, and you give them a little walkthrough or Joe, and they give you a bid and you go with the lowest one.
And that's sort of what we're now in that price agreement at the time. And then Arlen Construction again is the CES also, so that was another reason.
Yeah, that's all we love to, the other, we got quite a few, it's been one source for too long. And that's a little too concerning. Now he has the thing that was sole cert, so I need to see that opened up. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Next, gonna speed it up a little. We have a letter C, school safety. Ms. Johnston.
President Archuleta, members of the board, I know we've been talking quite a bit about school safety, and I shared that I would put together a presentation for you. So I did a little research on what's happening nationally, and there is a research clearinghouse called Hanover Research, and that's where I got my information, best practices in school security. And it's a lot of information. I did make you copies of the PowerPoint, so I'm going to just go through my slides very quickly, and you can read this more in depth. If you can go to the next slide, please. I think we all agree, all of us in this room, that our schools should be safe havens for teaching and learning, free of crime and violence. And sadly, with incidents such as beginning with Columbine, Sandy Hook, San Bernardino, it has left all of us struggling to determine and develop the most effective systems to protect everyone in our schools. Some key findings based on national research, specifically the National Center for Education Statistics. In a recent survey on crime and safety, the most common types of security measures at all levels of schooling, that would be elementary through post-secondary, are locking our buildings, requiring faculty and staff to wear ID badges, video surveillance cameras, and electronic notification systems. So those blitz emails we get, like Lickman, Amber Alert, and so forth. Also, according to NCES, about 70% of middle school and high school students attend a school that has at least one security or law enforcement officer. And of course, this number would vary based on the size of the school. Approximately a third of our nation's public schools have security guards, including elementary, middle, and high schools, again, all levels. And the sources of security vary from districts having their own police force, or security officers, to contracted services, local law enforcement providing the service as part of community policing. And there seems to be no clear consensus regarding the effectiveness of security measures in schools across the nation. And it was interesting in doing the research, it was kind of all over the place. It wasn't real consistent. Regarding overall safety measures, studies have found that the more severe and pervasive measures can result in increased violence, crime, and disorder in schools. And conversely, the most effective security practices are based on a firm, fair, consistent, but